Okay, so before we get into building our app, I want to spend just a couple of minutes looking through all this directory stuff because, man, this is overwhelming for most people the first time they fire up Rails. They say, what is all this stuff? I don't know what any of this is. I quit. I don't even want to know. And it's really not that hard. And throughout this whole course, we're going to be using these files and directories, and you'll get a feel of them as we go along. But before that, I just want to kind of point out some things, sort of show you the important parts that you sort of need to know about. The rest of the things aren't that important, and you'll figure that out as we go. So first things first, looking through here, there's just all these different directories and some of these files here. Now, before we get into the directories, let's look at this gem file. This is whenever we want to add third-party functionality to our app, we add it in the gem file. And the first thing I always do when I start a new Rails app or a new Rails project is I open the gem file and I get rid of all these comments. See this little hashtag number sign there? That's how Rails and Ruby, in fact, uses comments. And usually comments are good, but in this Rails file, it just makes everything kind of hard to read. So I just go through here and delete all these comments. Just takes a second. Boom, boom. And a couple more here. And there we go. And then I hit Control S to save this, and you see all changes are saved. If you're on a Mac, I think it's Command S, or you can always go up to File and just click Save. And you can see now, these are all the important things in this file. And whenever we want to add something new, we just type in gem, add the thing, save it, run a command down in the command line, and boom, it works. So that's the gem file. So let's look at some of these directories. Now, if you come down here to the command line and click and type in ls, this lists all of the files in this directory. You can see here we have config. Well, that's this config right here. Here we have app, right? That's this app right here. So the things in here also show up down here. We won't use them down here. I just kind of want to show you how these are connected, just to give you a broad overview. But looking at some of these, most of these files we're not ever going to use. Most of these directories we're never going to open. That's the good news. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed with all this stuff. A lot of it you'll never use. So, I mean, if you get into way advanced Rails stuff, maybe you'll use some of them someday. But for like 98% of the things you're ever going to do, you're not going to use most of these things. So one thing that we will use a lot is this app directory. And here we see this assets. Here's where we can put images, some JavaScript, some CSS style sheet stuff. We'll use that. Here we have controllers. Rails is a model view controller thing. So the controllers are sort of like the brains behind the scenes. So that's where these go. And we'll use that a lot. Helpers we won't use, mailers we won't use, models we'll use a little bit. Models, MVC, model view control. Models are database things. So we're gonna be using some database stuff in this course. So we'll use that directory. The views are like the web pages, right? This is where your HTML goes. And so we'll use this a lot, this directory right here. So that's the app directory, very useful. Bin we probably won't use. Config we'll use a little bit. Let's see, the routes file. That creates our URLs like www.mywebsite.com/aboutus.html. That route, that URL, that's where you create those in there. So we'll use that a little bit. Let's see, most of this other stuff in there we won't use. Database we'll use. This is where some of your database stuff goes. Lib, log, public test, temp, vendor. None of these we'll use at all. So really, we're looking at this app directory, a little bit of this config directory, and a little bit of this DB directory. And that's pretty much it. So not as overwhelming as it may seem the first time you look at all this stuff, and so that's a good thing. And like I said, as we go through this course, we'll be using this stuff, and it'll become very easy, and you'll sort of get used to it, and you'll know exactly where to go to do whatever you want to do. So that's all for this video. In the next video, we're going to look at version control, setting up version control, and we're going to use something called Git for that, and that'll be in the next video.